I would like to introduce myself. My name is Hamid Kashan. I am UNICEF Polio Team's Digital Engagement and Misinformation Management Specialist, and I work out of the UNICEF Polio Team in New York headquarters. My email address here that is displayed is hkashan@unicef.org. You can also see this at the end of this email. So for today, we're going to look at how to recognize misinformation. What is the relevance of misinformation management and the digital communication ecosystem? What are the evidence-based strategies to managing misinformation? And what are some of the tools that misinformation specialists are currently using? Then we will come to some strategies that we have seen working at the field level. And finally, some support that is available to you to respond to misinformation and request more greater technical support. The first session of the webinar is about recognizing misinformation. The first thing I want all of us to realize and remember is that misinformation is natural. It's not something evil, something nefarious that we can one fine day just completely eliminate. Misinformation has been around as long as humans have been able to communicate with each other. I am sure that when we were young, all of us played the game of Chinese whispers. When you share information between different people in the same room without the others hearing it, and by the end of the chain, the original information is completely different. Majority of misinformation that we identify is akin to that, a game of Chinese whispers. When people are sharing misinformation with each other, they often do not know that they're sharing misinformation. They truly believe for it to be accurate information that they are sharing with their communities to protect them. Realizing that misinformation is a natural part of the information ecosystem means that it has implications for how we respond to it as well. That means that instead of this body of work being called misinformation eradication, we call it misinformation management. Because we realize that while this is important work, we also realize that we cannot completely eradicate misinformation forever from everywhere in the world. Now, one question that we tend to get an awful lot is, where does misinformation come from? And a growing body of evidence points to this simple fact that whenever there is an information vacuum, we have misinformation. If all of us as communication professionals did our job right 100% of the time, that as soon as a community expressed a need for information, we provided them that information immediately in terminologies and in a way that was acceptable and understandable to them, we would have a lot less misinformation. But unfortunately, that is not always possible. That is because we have our own limitations. We do not have the resources to reach every single person on the planet. We sometimes do not have all the facts ourselves. And sometimes we don't know that there is an information need at the community level. So information vacuums keep originating, and that sometimes lead to misinformations. When community has accurate information available to them, they don't have to look for information around them. But when there are blanks in their minds or questions they cannot answer themselves, then they look around, they talk to each other, they seek information. Sometimes they end up finding the right information, but other times they end up getting incorrect information, and when shared, that becomes misinformation. In the simplest form, misinformation just points to a community's need for information. But there are different types that we need to consider, and the intent and background and response to all of them differs. The first one is information, which is facts, that ideally you and I would always like to share facts with each other, and that all our communication would always be factual, full of data, completely convincing. That is the first part of the information ecosystem. Second is misinformation. Now, majority of the rumors and misinformation that we identify online tends to be in this bucket, which is misinformation. And misinformation is almost always unintentional. It's information that people are sharing with each other without realizing that they are sharing a falsehood or an inaccuracy. These individuals truly believe that they are sharing correct information, and they are trying to protect people around them. Contrary to what it might seem like at times, this really is the vast majority of misinformation that is circulating around the world. Next is disinformation. Disinformation is when there is an intention or a motivation or a motive behind sharing inaccurate information. This motivation could be political, it could be economic, it could be social. Some people create rumors and produce disinformation because it gives them more followers online. For others, it gives them greater viewership, it gives them greater readership, and thus greater visibility and control in their communities. This is disinformation, and the difference between misinformation and disinformation is intent. And the last thing is rumors. Rumors are just unconfirmed, unsubstantiated, repeated information sharing. You hear something, you don't know it's entirely true. You tell someone that I've heard this has happened or this could happen. They share it with someone else, and so on. Rumors do not necessarily have intent around them. It's us as humans sitting together, socializing, sharing information about our surroundings. Some rumors are innocuous, harmless. Others, when they're about vaccines, for example, they can be very harmful. For example, if there was a rumor that COVID vaccine is not safe, this rumor might convince someone who heard it from someone near to them. It might prevent them from vaccinating themselves or their families. No matter whether it's misinformation, disinformation, or rumor, all of this has the likelihood to undermine a robust health system intervention. It can erode a community's trust in vaccination programs. And as we are now realizing through more and more research, that vaccine hesitancy does not just affect one vaccine, it affects all vaccines. So if a community is unsure about the COVID vaccine, the likelihood is that that hesitancy might translate to routine immunization next week, next month, or next year. This is why, in particular, vaccine-related hesitancy and misinformation is not just one program's challenge. It's everyone's issue that needs a consolidated solution, and for all of us to come together and share our learnings and best practices for everyone to benefit from. What we're doing today is part of the same exercise of sharing some learnings that we've been able to arrive at with the polio program. Now, before we go any further, I want to tell all of you that there is no magic pill. If you were hoping that by the end of this webinar, you will have a key that you can use to turn off misinformation in your communities, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but nothing like that exists to the best of our knowledge. But we have practical solutions, tools, advice, and evidence-based strategies that you can use to limit the damages of misinformation in your programs. Let's start looking at the first part of this puzzle, which is digital relevance. If you're like me and you have been working in communities where internet penetration is not that great, or internet access is expensive, then a lot of times you or your colleagues might have questioned, why should we even engage with the internet and digital conversations when our communities don't even have clean water? That's because about 60% of the global population is already online. And this number is growing rapidly. The developed countries have already reached saturation points with their access to internet. But majority of the growth of the internet use and mobile phone use is coming from developing countries, in particular Africa. This growth is going to fuel an entirely new set of communities and audiences which never had access to the internet to come online. And if the first few things they see online is vaccine hesitancy content and vaccine-related misinformation, it might prevent them from healthy behaviors in the future. Then we need to look at this long-established technology adoption curve. We have noticed around the world that whenever new technology is introduced, whether it be radio, whether it be television, mobile phones, or internet, whenever new technologies come to a community, the people who start using those things first tend to be the innovators who already are at the forefront. These people naturally tend to be excited by new things and new ideas. Then you have your early adapters who adopt new things faster than other people. They are not scared of technology and new things. Then you have your early majority, which tends to latch on to people who are the trendsetters right before them, the early adapters. And then the rest of the community follows through. At the global level, we're already into late majority now with 60%. But even in communities where internet penetration is under 20%, what is important is what kind of 20% is currently accessing the internet. The people who are accessing internet right now are influential in their communities. They already have access to money, to mobile phones, to influence, and to knowledge. And now, when they have access to social media and the internet, their prominence in the community becomes even greater, because now they are not just someone wealthy who lives in the community. They've now become a source of information for the community. Once they become the information source for the community, their prominence rises even more. Which leads us to direct access versus indirect access. In a lot of the communities that we work in, we continuously see that people, even though do not have access to social media, yet they have received information that is circulating on social media. How does that happen? It happens because the people who are the information providers in those communities, for example, their social leaders, or their journalists, or people who migrate from within these communities to areas which have high level of internet penetration and internet access. These people get that information, come back to the community, and share it at the community level. This means that we have documented evidence of communities without stable internet connections and internet access receiving information from social media. This is more so true for journalists. Journalists rely on information sharing and fast transmission of knowledge. And the fastest way to do that is through a mobile phone and through internet. If the journalist at the local newspaper that is very influential in your community is accessing their information from social media, and they happen to see on the internet information that is incorrect about vaccines, they might report it or share it with their community, either in the newspaper itself or in person. As we discussed earlier, the people who are sharing this information already have a substantial stature in their communities. And when they provide more information to the community, their words carry more weight and they become even more powerful. This is why, as communication professionals, we can no longer afford to ignore the internet. We must make it a standard part of our communication cycle. So now let's look at how can we manage misinformation. And I'm very intentional, again, about using the word managing misinformation as opposed to eradicating or ending misinformation. Because trying to end misinformation is like trying to put the light back into the candle. You can try as much as you want. It's not going to quite happen. You will always be chasing it. So to do misinformation management, UNICEF has produced a framework. This is coming out of UNICEF's Vaccine Misinformation Management Field Guide. This guide was produced in December 2020 in partnership with Yale Institute for Global Health, First Draft, and Public Good Projects. The guide looked at all the available evidence and research around misinformation management and produced practical advice on how to manage misinformation at the field level. UNICEF Polio team converted this guide into a practical 2-day workshop, which provides polio outbreak countries with all the tools, capabilities, and capacity to respond to misinformation. I would like to discuss this process with you a little bit. In the first part, you have preparation for misinformation management, which starts with building a team. Time and again, we have seen that countries that have a misinformation management team or that function allocated to a specific number of people, then those countries are better at responding to misinformation and are faster at responding to misinformation. The next step is your information ecosystem analysis. This is where we explore how is the community currently getting their information. If we don't know how they are receiving their information, we can't provide them with our response to misinformation. So this part is fundamental. Second is listening. For those of you who work in our C4D stream, this is a standard operating procedure for you, which is including the community into program design and listening to them to decide what interventions they require. The first part of listening is to build a social listening system. The social listening system plugs into the information ecosystem that the community uses and engages or reports with the information that they are currently consuming. This reporting could be specifically about subjects such as vaccines and viruses, or it could be a broader overview of community concerns and community interests. For communication professionals, that is critically important because this allows us to understand what motivates this audience and what motivates this community. With this knowledge, we can identify information gaps that could potentially lead to misinformation. Through social listening, we can identify actual rumors that are circulating or are about to circulate. This capability to listen to the community has far-reaching consequences beyond just misinformation management. As all of you know, data collection is expensive. But things such as online social listening are incredibly cheap and accessible. They can provide us with immediate insights into the community's sentiments and concerns that I can use to create more effective content that resonates with them and provides them the answers they're looking for. Next, we have the understand phase of misinformation management. In this phase, we assess the misinformation that we've identified. We create the indicators that we're going to use to monitor it. We identify actionable insights that need a response. Because one thing I want all of us to be mindful of is that not every rumor needs to be responded to. That's because every time you try to respond to a rumor, you run the risk of spreading it even further. But how do you decide which rumors to engage with and which rumors to not engage with right now? That is done in this understand phase. And we have a risk assessment matrix specially designed for this particular section. Then you have the engage section of misinformation management. That is where the exciting stuff happens. That's where we are actively engaging with misinformation, where telling people that this information is incorrect, this is correct. I think that's what a lot of you are here to learn more about. It starts with planning for your content, developing your message banks, conducting your risk assessment exercises, and knowing what are my risks, and creating that content so that when you have misinformation storm, you're ready to respond. And then that is where you create your monitoring and evaluation systems and the lessons learned that you can feed back into your social listening program so that social listening improves, you can improve your risk assessment, and ultimately improve the content and the messaging that you're using to respond to misinformation so it spreads less. Now, after having a quick look at that framework, something that we've been establishing and implementing for about a year now, we have a few learning and successes that we want to share with you. The first one is, and the first success factor that we believe would lead for your misinformation programs to be successful, is for you to build a misinformation management team. Whenever there is a misinformation or infodemic in a country, there is an immediate need to respond. At that time, people start looking at each other. Who is going to respond to this rumor? This is a religious rumor, so should it be the religious teams? This is a medical rumor, so should it be the Ministry of Health maybe? But if you have created a team in advance with defined roles and TORs and responsibilities of who does what in what kind of misinformation response, then when you do have an actual rumor to respond to, everyone knows who needs to do what and when. This preparation and allocation of a team could mean the difference between a rumor spreading all over the country or you being able to stop it from spreading to where it was originally found. The other thing to consider about building this particular team is we recommend for you to not create a new structure. We don't want you to hire more people and create a parallel structure to something that is already existing in your countries. This is because when you have parallel structures, they tend not to be sustainable. Ideally, you would create a team that would work with your existing health promotion or Ministry of Health communication teams. And we definitely request that with your misinformation management teams, you include all the relevant partners. For example, with polio, we always include the GPEI partners into misinformation management teams at the country level. These would include certainly UNICEF and WHO. And some countries have chosen to include the donor community into this as well, while other countries have chosen to invite media outlets to these misinformation management teams. The goal is that when you have a diverse set of partners, a diverse set of ideas that are driving misinformation response, you will have a greater quality response and you will be able to stop rumors faster. Let's look at success factor number 2. This is incredibly important, which is to consolidate your social listening from all mediums into the same place. Why? Because when you listen to your social listening, you have your online social listening, you have your offline social listening, and you have your social listening coming from the ground level up. They all reside in separate silos, and they are being reported at the medium level which is online, offline, and on the ground. But it's the same community. Why would we not look at this data at the community level, which is, what does this district consume on the internet? What does this same district consume on traditional media? And what are they looking at, or what are they discussing at the ground level? When I consolidate that social listening by community or social group or district, it gives me a greater understanding of what the community challenges and information gaps are. This gives me the ability to create a stronger, more robust misinformation response. We've had a great such example from the team in Sierra Leone. UNICEF country office in Sierra Leone conducted the misinformation management workshop, which was run by the polio program. As a direct outcome of the workshop, the polio team in Sierra Leone, particularly Emanuele Sidonelli, worked on creating a dashboard that consolidated rumors from online, offline, and on ground into the same place, and allowed the program managers to map rumors in almost real time. This was certainly the first time we had seen this being done. Now, let's look at the next success factor. It's always very tempting to see rumors as they come in and say, well, it's not hurting anyone, it's not affecting anyone, I'll deal with it when it becomes a problem. Understandable. All of you are very busy. You have full sets of portfolios to address. But we've seen that countries and teams that do risk assessment for every single rumor they identify are better prepared for an actual infodemic when it spreads in their communities. The rationale here is that when a rumor comes in, you immediately conduct a risk assessment exercise, which is trying to answer whether this rumor will lead to vaccine hesitancy and vaccine refusal. When you conduct this risk assessment based on the risk assessment matrix I discussed earlier, it provides you with an idea on which rumors are currently important and which rumors may become important in the future and which ones do not look very important right now. This, especially for teams that are stressed, is critical because it provides you with the prioritization on which rumors do you need to address first, second, third. As a tip, the polio program considers that if a rumor or a misinformation results in a vaccine refusal, we immediately mark it as a high-risk rumor and engage with it. But we highly recommend that every rumor that you record or identify, conduct risk assessment for it. Now, success factor 4. We already do this to a certain extent, which is we keep our messages and spokespersons ready. But this is even more important for misinformation response. This is because when you have a rumor spreading, you don't have the time to be able to, at that point, design your messages, get your spokespersons. If you don't have these things ready at that time, the rumor will keep spreading while you get these things ready. The damage will keep increasing while you're doing this stuff, which should be your homework for managing a rumor. So keeping your message and spokespersons ready for all rumors that you've identified in the community is critical to success. Let's look at success number 5. Now, all of us, certainly at UNICEF, have been trained from the very get-go that monitoring and evaluation is critical to the success of every program. This is even more important for misinformation management. The reason is that a lot of times for rumors and misinformation, we don't always have a lot of data available. You find or hear a rumor tonight that this community is saying that we are not going to take the polio vaccine because we hear the polio vaccine is not safe. And because of that, this rumor is now spreading and communities left and right are saying we're not going to vaccinate our children. I don't know how many people there are. I don't know at this point how many children have refused. I don't know which all districts have been exposed to this rumor. If at that point I sit down and start thinking about how do I measure the reach and scope of this rumor, my response will take forever to implement, and I will not know exactly who I need to reach and when. And even when I do implement my responses, I will not know how to measure the success. For example, one of the key things that we recommend for evaluating the success of a rumor response is once you've deployed it, how many times did you hear or have that rumor be reported again? If this rumor was being reported every day for the last 1 week, then you placed your intervention. And after that, the rumor was being reported every other day. That means that your intervention might have played a role in reducing that spread. So it's important to have your indicators and have your success parameters identified in advance of an intervention. You will find some of these indicators in the vaccine misinformation management field guide, and certainly as part of the UNICEF Polio Team's misinformation management workshop. Now, what are some of the tools that we are using to respond to rumors and misinformation and listen to community sentiment? The first one is called TalkWalker. And using TalkWalker, we've built a dashboard. TalkWalker is a publicly available tool. It works like a giant Google. You give it keywords, it goes all over the internet, on Twitter, on Reddit, on websites, and everything else that is publicly visible on the internet. It goes all over there, identifies your keywords, and brings back those results to you. Those results, you can also find them through Google. But through TalkWalker, it's easier to consolidate that data, visualize it, and see and identify trends. You can also filter your results. You can translate the results that you're identifying in case you don't speak the language that you're tracking. Then it also gives you the ability to dig deeper into the results you've identified. By looking at word clouds, most frequently used words, heat maps of where the misinformation actually originated or is circulating, and who are the people who are sharing this information the most. Now, I'm mindful here of calling it information because with social listening, our perspective is that we do not want to only go out looking for misinformation. The reason is that a lot of misinformation actually just looks like regular information. So if you go out looking for only misinformation, you're going to miss a lot of incorrect information that is circulating in the community. So we recommend that have a holistic view of what your community sentiment is, what are their concerns, and what are they talking about. By doing that, using a tool like TalkWalker, you have a greater likelihood of coming across misinformation and addressing it. With TalkWalker, UNICEF globally has an LTA, which is really easily accessible by all UNICEF offices. And if you are in a polio outbreak country, you have access to a TalkWalker dashboard through the UNICEF polio team. To request it, please feel free to email me or reach out to your regional or local C4D officer, and they will be able to get you access to TalkWalker through us. The next thing that I want to suggest to all of you is to create a weekly summary from TalkWalker. TalkWalker identifies all the hundreds of results that it has identified around your keywords. Sometimes you don't have the time to go and look at all the social listening and all the results that I've identified. So TalkWalker combines them into a weekly summary of the top 200 results, or maybe the top 50 results, whatever you define, and sends it to you every week. This weekly reporting can be shared internally or externally to identify what community sentiment is, what is media sentiment, and if there's anything that needs a response. This could be very useful in increasing and promoting the profile of your social listening activities when you share it with your partners. Next is CrowdTangle. CrowdTangle is a tool provided by Facebook for free in a partnership with UNICEF. This tool is specifically designed to reach for conversations on Facebook. Because of user privacy issues, Facebook does not allow tools such as TalkWalker to get access to conversations on Facebook itself. But again and again, field teams tell us that the most misinformation they get reports about tend to be originating on Facebook. So to listen to those conversations and specifically look at conversations on Facebook, we have this tool called CrowdTangle. The polio team has created a global dashboard for it. And this dashboard is accessible by everyone. It's an open link. We will be able to share the link with you. Using this link, you can customize the view that you see on your screen here to specifically your countries, which could provide you an indication of what the community is talking about on Facebook about polio in particular. Similar dashboards exist for COVID-19 and a variety of other health-related subjects. If your local C4D team does not have access, please reach out to your regional teams and they should be able to get you access to CrowdTangle. If needed, please feel free to reach out to us and we would be happy to connect you with the Facebook team to get access to CrowdTangle for yourself. Next is CrowdTangle Viral Alerts. CrowdTangle is able to send out alerts to you on email as soon as it believes that a post with your keywords is going viral or it's spreading fast. When Facebook sends me these alerts, I immediately look at them and see what is the content about. Sometimes the content is harmless, other times it's just a news report, but sometimes, like in this instance, it's vaccine hesitancy. When you identify something like this, you engage and plan your response accordingly. If I don't have this viral alert, then I will probably see my CrowdTangle dashboard tomorrow, maybe no longer today. That might mean that this post would have another 12 hours to spread without any action from me, and that's time lost. So we highly recommend that when you have access to CrowdTangle, build your viral alerts to receive them as soon as any post is going viral with your keywords. Next tool that I want to share with you is ODK forms, Open Data Kit forms, or COBO forms. These forms are incredibly useful to collect field-level rumors. These forms are incredibly simple. They do not require a consistent internet connection. So that means that your field workers can download them when they have internet access, go into the field, collect data onto their phones, and come back where they have internet connection and upload them to a server. All of this happens automatically. They do not need to do anything other than click fill blank form. When they send the form, it bypasses all the challenges that paper-based forms have and is readily available on a central repository. This means that program managers and communication professionals could immediately see what the community sentiment is, compare it to online social listening and offline social listening, and have a greater view of what the community needs are at the moment. This is a very cost-effective tool, and this was exactly what our Sierra Leone team used to develop their social listening system. Both UNICEF and WHO already have existing relationships with ODK and COBO. So I would reach out to our supply division to request access and connecting with these organizations to see how you can use ODK and COBO to collect misinformation and rumors from the ground level. So now we've looked at the theory around misinformation management. We looked at some of the framework and success metrics around it. And we also looked at some tools that we can use to respond to misinformation. But now let's look at how to engage with rumors, how to respond to rumors. The one thing that I want all of us to know is evidence proves that when you go out and tell someone spreading rumors and misinformation that you are wrong, I am right, that does not work. It does not make people stop sharing misinformation. There is a specific style of messaging that works. It's called fact, myth, fallacy, fact structure of message design. You can also find that either in our workshop materials or in the Vaccine Misinformation Management Field Guide. So let's look at some strategies that we know work and have evidence behind it to suggest they work. The first one in the prevent side of things is all of us must invest in media literacy. A lot of times what we see is when users on social media report a rumor, local media also tends to repeat that misinformation by saying that people are reporting this. This doesn't always result in truth being shared. So this is a standard practice that we do with our communication programs, that we engage with the media. But for misinformation response, it's even more important that the media knows that if they ever have unsubstantiated information that they want to run, they have a source in us to reach out and verify this information before they publish it. Organizations such as First Draft have created very substantial bodies of work on how journalists can identify and report misinformation. Tools like that are readily available. So please invest in media literacy. Second is that all of us must support our fact-checking organizations, because evidence suggests that fact-checking organizations have a role to play in misinformation response. A lot of times when you don't have the resources to respond to rumors, or you're too close to the subject to refute it. For example, if you're working at the government and there's a government program related rumor that is circulating, your word is no longer good enough. That is why we need to support and encourage fact-checking organizations in our communities. Their credibility can help prevent misinformation from spreading. The last one in this stream is that we must conduct our risk anticipation exercises. For those of us who have worked in vaccination programs for any number of years, we now know that majority of the rumors that we identify tend to be the same. For example, I have worked with polio program for a while now. So I know that a lot of rumors that we identify for COVID now are exactly the same rumors that we identified for polio 10 years ago. The people who are sharing misinformation don't know that these rumors are not new, or they were already applied to other diseases and vaccines. But we know that. That gives us an indication that the misinformation cycle or the types of misinformation that circulates in a community does not vary greatly. This means I can preempt it. I can preempt the kind of misinformation and develop messages, content, strategies around it so that if and when such a risk occurs, I'm ready to respond. This can be done in something as simple as an Excel sheet. These are all my rumors. These are all the potential rumors that can come out. And against it, I will have all the messages that I will use. We have such exercises and such products available for the polio teams. If you need access to them, please reach out to us and we'd be happy to share the misinformation response standard message bank and designs with you. A lot of these messages and designs would work just as well for COVID-19 and for routine immunization. Now, let's look at what happens in a crisis situation and what can we do that will help ease it. The first and foremost suggestion is that we must remain accessible and visible to the public and media. This is nothing new. If you go back to your crisis communications strategies and crisis communications trainings, this is one of the core components there, that we need to open those channels of communication and remain accessible to the media and to public, so that when they need clarity, when they need confirmation about their beliefs or information they're receiving, they can confirm it with us. And if we believe for it to be not true, we can correct it. Staying silent, staying out of the conversation means we're allowing for this crisis to perpetuate and for this misinformation to spread even further. Next is targeting your response to where the rumor is. For example, if your rumor is circulating in a small rural community, there is no need for you to produce a television PSA and run it on national TV. Sounds obvious, but with misinformation, because there is this potential for a rumor to spread, that can be a suggestion and that has been a suggestion. But try to reduce the scope of your intervention to exactly where the rumor is as much as possible. If it's already on national TV, for example, then targeting goes out the window and you need to throw everything you have at this rumor response. So being mindful of responding to a rumor where it's circulating is important, because every time we try to refute or deny a rumor, we run the risk that we will expose more people to this rumor. Next, in our messaging, when we are responding to a rumor or sharing facts, we must encourage the audience to reshare our content. And we must encourage the audience to produce supportive content. The reason for this is social media content and rumors on social media have a specific tone about them. And they have that power that spreads. The content that we produce tends to be nice, effective, but it's not necessarily always designed for social media with that sort of familiar tone, with that sort of casual words. This is why whenever you identify user-generated content that is supportive of our program, share it on your own social media platforms. The reason for that is it incentivizes other people to create supportive content. It reaffirms positive behavior in the people who did produce this good content. And it might inspire other people to create supportive content for your programs. So even in a crisis situation, if you can encourage other people to create supportive content, do so. And when they do, reshare it on your own platforms. Next, we have messaging. For messaging, the first and foremost thing for all us to remember is we need to raise credible voices to say what we need to say. If I stand in the corner of a busy square in your city and start shouting that COVID vaccine is safe, COVID vaccine is safe, no one's going to look at me. No one's going to care. People will think, who is this funny person shouting? But if it's a local religious leader or a local political elder, then you will have hundreds of people standing around them and listening to exactly the same words that I was saying. That is the power of credibility. So whatever you need to say with your messaging to respond to misinformation, channel it through a credible voice. And that credibility does not come necessarily at the national level. Just because someone is famous or popular and visible at the national level does not mean that they will be credible at the local community level. All of us know this. Every community has their own motivators. We need to find those voices and channel our messages through those voices. Next, around your messaging is for us to be truly and fully transparent. As well-meaning as we are, we don't always have all the information. And it's okay for us to turn around and say, we don't know, but we are looking at it. And this is what we know right now. This is because if we are not fully transparent and we say something right now that is later found out to be incorrect, then not only do we lose our credibility, we will also damage trust in the health services and health programs in the country. So when you do not have information, be fully transparent that you don't have all the answers, but you're trying to get those answers. Next is that please do not malign or single out individuals or communities that are sharing misinformation, because it stigmatizes them. It makes them a target and it makes them defensive and protective of their way of life and their thoughts and beliefs. An example of this would be if you have a specific religious community that is refusing vaccination on religious grounds, do not identify them in your messaging. Do not say this sect of this church in this location is not vaccinating their children because of their religious beliefs. When that goes on to national television or national media, it really singles them out and it's against everything that we do as an organization and everything that the evidence suggests works. So please do not single out or malign anyone. As you remember previously, people who are often sharing misinformation are just trying to protect their communities and be helpful. They don't know that they're doing a disservice to their communities. So we need to educate them, not threaten or single them out. Next is countering misinformation. When you do have a rumor and you're responding to it, try to keep it simple. If you go back to all the rumors that you've heard, they tend to be very, very simple. They're like a sentence at max, 10 to 15 words at best. Things like, COVID vaccine is not safe. Polio vaccine causes infertility. So they are very, very short things. If the response is 500 words long, no one is going to read it. If your goal is to cram everything about desirable behavior and the logic and the rationale for why this rumor is untrue into one message, then that message will fail. When you're responding to your rumors and misinformation, keep it simple, crisp, and as short as you possibly can. Be ruthless about it. The goal with misinformation response is not to generate healthy behavior. It's just to reduce the incidence of that rumor. I will repeat this again because it's important. The goal of misinformation response is not to promote healthy behavior. It's to reduce the incidence of that rumor or misinformation that we are addressing. So at that time, keep your messaging simple. Second, sometimes there is evidence that if you mirror the misinformation that is circulating in this community, you use similar tone, similar terminology, similar words, then communities tend to retain that message. That does not mean that we suddenly start creating sensationalist designs and sensationalist messages, but we can use similar words and similar phrasing because we know the original in the rumor, when it was used, it worked and it traveled far. So when you use it again, there is likelihood that it will be received and understood in a similar manner. Next is to ask everyone to share. We often are very shy of asking people to share. We think that we're just going to post it on our social media profiles and misinformation will be gone. That is unfortunately not how it works. Responding to misinformation is not just one organization and one person's job, especially online. Misinformation spreads from thousands of individuals in thousands of locations all over the world. The response cannot be one person or one country just putting it up on their social media page. We need to ask our communities to share. We need to engage them, ask them. When you've created a post, right at the bottom, be very obvious, please repost to help others. Please reshare on your profile to protect your friends and family. 95% of the people will not do it. They will not repost, but 5% will. And that is 5% extra reach that you've been able to get just by adding that tiny little message at the end of your content. So ask everyone to share it. Reach out to your partners, reach out to government. Everyone you're working with, ask them to share this content that you're producing to respond to misinformation. Next, and this is fairly obvious, but is not often done, that when we are responding to misinformation, we need to create platform-specific content. For example, for Facebook, you need an image and a caption. Just an image is not enough. For Instagram, reduce your caption, make a powerful image, try to insert your text in there if you can. If you have a simple enough message, it will fit in there. For Twitter, have your message in text or image as well, but Twitter is still more text driven. And of course, video for YouTube. So if you make platform-specific content that is native to that content, there is tons of evidence around it that it will get greater engagement, greater reshares, and greater reach. But if you use the same message style, same message design, same message tone, and just copy paste it everywhere, that's just us being lazy. We can do better. Now, in terms of support, what do we have available? First of all, we have UNICEF Polio Team's Digital Community Engagement Unit, which is a partnership with PGP, and DCEU, for short, provides polio outbreak countries with online social listening, misinformation messaging, geo-targeted digital advertising, and digital social mobilization support. So all the tools and results out of DCEU are available to anyone. The direct support and priority that DCEU is currently working on is with 5 priority polio outbreak and endemic countries. But the goal is to expand it to all polio outbreak countries by next year. With greater interventions and activities, we will have a greater body of evidence that we can use to provide you with proven strategies, activities, and tools that you can use to respond to misinformation. As part of the same stream, we have U-Influence, which is something that we are building with the DCEU. It's a global network of social media influencers to support children's health. This is unbranded. It's going to be not connected to any of the organizations, and over 99% of all influencers that we are going to engage will be volunteers. The goal is to build a support system at the grassroots level, no matter how small, to have them share their voices and lend their credibility to promote and support the health of their communities. Next, we have the Vaccine Demand Observatory, which is a project between UNICEF, Public Good Projects, and Yale Institute for Global Health. BDO is specifically working and creating amazing work around COVID-19. I would definitely visit their website and engage with them if you need support around that. And finally, if you happen to be in Africa, then you have the Africa Infodemic Response Alliance, which has UNICEF, WHO, IFRC, Gavi, and a bunch of other organizations coming together to jointly respond to misinformation. The public-facing product of IRA is Viral Facts Africa, which produces content to rebuke rumors and misinformation that are circulating in Africa around vaccines. Now, before I finish my presentation, I'd like to encourage all of you with one word: to prepare. Misinformation in our current online information ecosystem is not an if, but a when. If it is not about the COVID vaccine, it will be about some other vaccine. If it's not about routine immunization, it will be about some other part of your program. Communities like to talk. Communities like to share information. And it's invariable that there will be some missed connections there for it to convert from information into misinformation. So when that happens, if you're ready, you'll be able to respond to it. But if you're not ready, that rumor will spread. Now, at the end, there is this line that I'd like to repeat, that you can extinguish a fire, you can put out the fire, but you can't bring the smoke back. The smoke is out. It's going to go and make everyone cough who's around it. Same goes for misinformation, that you can stop its spread, but if you don't act fast enough, the damage will already be done. So preparation is this most solid advice that I can provide to all of you to prepare for and respond to misinformation. Thank you very much. And at this point, we will take a few questions and comments. I know that we don't have an awful lot of time to be able to take all comments and questions, but if you have, if you need further information about any of the information and tools and content that we shared today, my email address is at the bottom here. Please feel free to reach out to me or to Audrey, who arranged this webinar. Thank you. And we will be able to get back to you with your responses. So I'm going to stop presenting my screen at this point and start taking some questions.
Thank you, Kishan. I see that Nikita has raised her hand and Nelly asked a question in the chat.
Okay, so let's look at the question first. I have one question in front of me. This is from Rohe, who is a Stop C4D consultant in Nigeria. Rohe is asking, in the event of engaging with the rumor, one runs a greater risk of spreading rumor even more. I think that that's the power rumor has itself. How can C4D engagers avoid this circumstance? Rohit, we can't avoid it completely. Whenever you go out to tell someone that, hey, don't think about a red elephant, there's no such thing as a red elephant. As soon as you say that, the first thing someone thinks of is a red elephant. And that is the power of strong imagery. And a lot of rumors kind of rely on that strong imagery and strong emotional responses to spread. And when you go out to respond to that rumor, how can you say, you refer to a red elephant without actually using the same words? So there is an evidence-based strategy called the FMFF structure of message design. It starts with a fact, then refers to the myth or the rumor that we're addressing, but this rumor is really weakened and really pared down. And then you tell them why this rumor is untrue, and then you repeat the fact. I'll repeat this again. You start with a fact, then you go to the weakened version of the rumor, then you say why this rumor is untrue, provide a logical fallacy for this, and then you provide the fact all over again. Now, evidence says that that style of message writing is more effective at telling and at changing someone's behavior and someone's mind, as opposed to me going up to them and telling them, you are wrong, I am right. So let's take our red elephant example. If I was to create a message for this, I would probably say something like, elephants are a friendly, or our elephants are a wonderful creature. There is a false rumor that there are elephants of other colors. That rumor is not true, because scientists and the government have verified that elephants only exist in one color. Elephants are great creatures. So I started with the fact that elephants are great creatures. I referred to the rumor without repeating that red rumor that there are red elephants. I removed that bit because I know that's powerful. And then I provided a logical response to it and a fallacy that government has verified there is no other color. And then I repeated the original fact that I need them to remember. The same structure works for vaccines, and we have an entire message bank with vaccine-related misinformation response. So let's look at a message in chat. Nelly is asking, can I please request someone to translate Nelly's question? Unfortunately, I don't speak French. So Audrey, if I can please request your support. Sorry, Audrey, I can't hear you. Can I request, just a second, Murray, I'm just going to change to English. Okay, hi, I can hear you now. Murray. Absolutely. Yes. So ODK is a tool. It can be used for anything. You can use it for data collection for your social mobilization. You can use it for campaign monitoring. You can use it for rumor collection. You can use it for anything. It's just like a paper tool that when you send out a paper tool or a paper, it can be used for anything. Similar for an ODK based form, you can ask any questions. You can use it for any purpose. I know of multiple countries that are using it for rumor collection. And I also know of multiple countries that are using it for EPI response and EPI data collection. Thank you for that question. Okay, so are there any other questions or comments, guys? No? Okay, great. Then in that case, thank you very much to all of you for joining today. As I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of these resources available, and we would be happy to share all of them with you. After this webinar, we will be sending out a link to this recording, so you will be able to look at it again. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day, evening, or night, wherever you are. Thank you very much, guys. Bye.